Today I read the sixth contact report to you from Sunday, February the 23rd, 1975, 10:30 p.m. This is a special contact report for me because the levels of evolution are told by Semjase, and that was like clicked for me. Then I saw this makes a lot of sense, and that the meaning of life is evolution in consciousness. And though I don't understand all the levels in detail, the overall, it made so much sense to me. And I was kind of hooked on the material from that point on. But everybody has maybe his favorite contact report or a special one. For me, that was like one of the key contact reports. Semjase, it took a very long time until you were ready for this next contact. Billy, it just so happened because I had to deal with various things and was therefore constantly strained. Constantly strained is not because of work only, but because his wife gave him often a hard time. So that's why they usually meet very late at night and Sunday night when he kind of can sneak out and she was asleep or so. Semjase, that can happen. But now I would like to explain more to you. Billy, can't that still wait? Because I myself would have something that interests me very much. Something that also preoccupies others very much, namely the life of the human being in its entirety. Semjase, as you want, but I actually wanted to give you a task and continue telling my story that I began the last time. But that can wait if you have something more important in your opinion. That shows again how much respect there is in their communication, and if Billy thinks this is more important, she respects it and doesn't give him like orders or so, like it is in our society. Billy, thanks, Semjase. In fact, I presently have something that seems very important to me. The life of the human being. As I said before, this means that I'm interested in the development of the life, its classification, the spirit and its development, and how it is concerning the so-called rebirth. Semjase, oh well, a field that is not just a headache for me, but on the other hand a science that is very wide-ranging and that has neither brought us such kinds of cognitions that the last secrets would be known to us. Therefore, concerning this, I can also only explain to you what is known to us and what we assume to be given. On the whole, there are actually only 5 very important points that we exactly know of, while 2 further points are of no certainty yet for us either. This is because they already lead us into the secrets of the creation, which is unapproachable for us too. I asked Billy about the 2 further points because Semjase doesn't elaborate later on about it, and he didn't want to tell me or doesn't know. But it's not so important. And it also, what's also so nice here is that she gives the knowledge freely, on our planet, they keep important knowledge in secret societies, and you have to swear an oath to keep it secret and under penalty of death and nonsense like that with the Freemasons, for example, and so on, and then they tell you lots of nonsense all the time, So, of course, they have also some real knowledge, but, you're not in the best company then, if you do that, Why not stay a free man or free woman and just read Billy's material, And wisdom is, if you meet a wise person, that wise person is always willing to give you knowledge freely. Only unwise people would not, because it's also in their interest to share their knowledge, because then the other person can advance. How did they learn in the first place? Because someone else taught them important stuff. So this also is, I mainly I read stuff, but maybe also a little bit of teaching kind of, but also some people write really interesting stuff in the comments, and I learn from that too, or then I go to Billy and check and ask. And so if I keep my stuff secret and you keep your stuff secret, it's much harder to develop. It takes much longer. And our lifetimes are very short. So it's much smarter to share knowledge, Anyway. Semjase. Oh well, a field that is known to us. Nevertheless, I don't want to withhold our assumptions from you. The life from the beginning to the end is divided, as said, into 7 main stages or main periods. These in turn are divided into 7 sub-periods, hence resulting in its entirety, meaning that there are 49 stages consciousness has to evolve through. The sub-stages or sub-periods can be compared to grades in school, except that these must not be calculated in 1 year, but for 1 human lifetime. This means that a very specific form of development and a very specific goal of development lie in a substage. Once all 7 substages are passed through, which can take hundreds of thousands of years, then a main period is completed. The spiritual life form is completely genderless, because a gender is without exception only characteristic of organic life, which guarantees its reproduction. Organic life, like spiritual life, is subjected to the law of rebirth in order to guarantee a development in both forms. So also our bodies develop from life to life. Should, not only spiritually. Though it doesn't have to be, it can also devolve, that's also possible. But in general, we should strive for evolving spiritually and also physically, to take care of your body, and that's also important. Stay a little fit and so on, Use your body to move and not sit all day, all the time, Thus, every human life form has to live through 7 distinct main stages or periods, and in each case 7 associated secondary or substages. In the case of location-dependent organic life forms, the periodic effects of the seasons are determinative, whereas in the case of spirit evolutive or spirit-dependent life forms, such as, for example, the human being, the periods are irregular and are often set individually. They therefore do not fall under a very distinct cycle like plants, etc. A rebirth of the spirit-dependent human being after his death of the body can therefore already reoccur after fractions of a second, or, however, only after decades, centuries, millennia, or after hundreds of thousands of years. In general, if you live, for example, 75 years, then in the afterlife you spend about twice that time, so 150 years before your spirit form or creation energy form is born into a human body again. In the case of the Plejaren, who live 1,000 years and longer, many of them, then the time in the afterlife is about 2,000 years. So because they have more, that's about the time you need to process kind of what you've done in your life and to learn from that. If a spirit-conditioned life is destroyed prematurely, that is, without it having reached a relative evolutionary goal, then it is to its disadvantage. This is because it cannot fully pass through the complete subperiod and must repeat, that is, complete this period through an intermediate life or during a normal life cycle in order for it to nevertheless achieve the period's goal. Billy? So that means that this life may under certain circumstances have to be lived a second time. Semjase? In a sense, yes. At least from the moment of life was forcibly destroyed. Accordingly, the life is naturally then also shorter, because it only has to make up for something missed in order to fulfill the period's goal. The whole thing, however, can be made up during a normal life cycle as the case may be. So that means sometimes people die very early and they weren't sick and suddenly died, and nobody can understand why, and that can be the reason that they had to kind of fulfill that evolutionary goal from a previous life that was cut short. And but it can also be that they live a long life and they fulfill that goal and another one that is kind of set for that life. So that's different. Billy? So then one could call it that it would be the hell, a punishment, so to speak. Semjase? Sure, because hell in truth means a self-inflicted punishment which must be served, always providing that the life is destroyed, that is, ended by oneself. In other words, this means that a sin, a self-caused error, must be made good again. If, however, the life is destroyed by the hand of a third party, then of course one cannot speak of punishment or atonement, etc. Billy? Aha, so then hell and sin in a religious sense are of pure nonsense. Semjase? Viewed that way, yes. Billy? So does this then mean that nobody is met with guilt if he makes errors in life which he can make up for in the form that he recognizes the error, or whatever one wants to call it, no longer making it, and takes it in as knowledge, from which then a degree of essence of the wisdom must result? Semjase? You are able to astonish me because your interpretation meets the deepest core of the truth. More and more, we all get the impression that you know more than we do and that you only want to test us. Somehow, a secret surrounds you, which we are not able to reveal. Now I thought that this secret is that he is their teacher also, as he is our teacher. But that's not the secret. And Swart knew it, and the Plejaren kind of asked him repeatedly what it is, but he doesn't tell them, and of course he doesn't tell me either. I haven't asked specifically, but yeah, maybe he was their teacher in previous lifetimes or whatever. There must be some connection, some with them, with the Plejaren and the civilizations close to them and so on. I thought that they were that there's a library on Era they could not access, and many people died. It has kind of a self-defense mechanism, a very effective one. And so Billy knew the password and got in with Swart. Swart stayed outside, but Swart brought him there, and Billy, for whatever reason, knew the password to get in and got in and was in the library for a while, and he gave them the password. So the Plejaren can access this library now too. And since he knew that password, I thought that he might have built that library, but he denied that. He didn't build that library in a previous life. But somehow, why does he know that, Yeah, you can ponder that for the rest of your life, like me. So there's some other secret about Billy, even the Plejaren don't know. And, but, probably not that important. Important to know is that he is our teacher and he's their teacher. And they recognize him as such, while we kind of, like to live in ignorance of wisdom and truth. Billy, that is too much of glory, Semjase, because this essence of wisdom was not cultivated in my own field. I got it from the Talmud Immanuel. Well, he's kind of diverting there a little, Anyway, Semjase, I understand, but still I see that it is also your conviction, and thus my astonishment is justified by it. But so is our conjecture, which I just made known to you. Billy, you actually amuse me, because do you really need justification? Semjase, naturally not. And you understand the sense of my words exactly. Thus, please don't split hairs and don't make jokes with me. Billy, I just wanted to have you on. Semjase, I do not understand that. It means that I allowed myself a joke. Semjase, oh, I see. I didn't know that. That expression is new to me. However, on the other hand, your words again testify to your peculiar sense of humor, as well as to the fact that we could be right with our conjecture. Billy, I just cannot find everything funny and laugh about things that other human beings can laugh about. Their sense of humor often seems primitive to me. And now, just stop the conjectures. Semjase, laughing. That is known to me very well, and I have often enjoyed your peculiar sense of humor. Well, let's leave the conjectures aside in the future. Let's let time do its work. Billy, that's all I needed. Was there no other way? Semjase, laughing again. I also like to laugh. Billy, that makes me happy. But now we have strayed from our conversation. Semjase, you're right, because I still have to explain a few things regarding your question. The 7 main stages or main periods each represent one full period with in turn their sevenfold subdivisions. You would say that this would be one semester. Therefore, in your sense, this would be called a semester life, during which 7 different subjects have to be completed. I want to explain this to you schematically. So now comes like this list. I show it to you. You can, of course, download it from, read it. Put the links in the description. And it starts with primary life, and then there are the different subdivisions and so and so. And I read this to you and say a few things. So it starts with primary life. First subdivision, primary development of the intellect and the consciousness. Second, primary intellectual and consciousness-based thinking. Third, primary intellect-based thinking. Fourth, primary use of intellect and consciousness power. Fifth, primary intellectual actions. Sixth, primary willful thinking and acting. 7, intellectual conduct of the life. Then life forms in these stages are designated by already rationality endowed beings as mentally ill in consciousness, as idiots, etc., whose consciousness and intellect, however, are in reality simply not yet developed in knowledge-based terms. That means like new spirit forms who have to first form itself through learning and experience, etc. Second main period is rationality-based life. And the first subdivision is primary development of rationality. Effective realization of the rationality and its use. Primary recognition and acknowledgement of higher influences. Belief in higher influences without having knowledge. Belief in higher powers, deluded belief, fear of evil, veneration of what is good, etc., and so on. Germination time for religions, etc. The next is, that was the 5th. Now the 6th is the present stage of the average Earth human, primary recognition of the real reality, stage of knowledge-based development, research, first spiritual cognitions and their use, spiritual healing, telepathy, etc. 7th, primary development of knowledge and essence of wisdom. That was the rationality-based life. Now comes the intellect-based life. The first subdivision is high-level development of the intellect, high technology, second use of spiritual power with first cognitions, primary procreation of life forms. Then the second subdivision is realization and use of knowledge, truth, and essence of wisdom, slow reduction of belief assumptions. That is the present stage of the educated earth human, like scientists, etc. Then the third subdivision is first utilization of knowledge and essence of wisdom. Fourth, recognition and utilization of the laws of nature, creation of hypertechnology, second, procreation of life forms. These are all stages like on a scientist level on this Earth, you could say. And this second procreation of life forms that I asked Billy, he said that would be like cloning life. Fifth subdivision, natural use of knowledge and essence of wisdom in recognition of spiritual powers. Further reduction of belief assumptions. Sixth, life in the knowledge of the essence of wisdom, truth, and the logic. And the seventh is primary recognition of the reality as real absolutum. That is the present stage of some few borderline and humanities scholars on this planet. But those are very few. That's not the average scientist, Joe, Okay, we come to real life. That's the fourth main period. First subdivision is clear knowledge about the reality as real absolutum. Second, recognition of the spiritual knowledge and the spiritual essence of wisdom. Third, utilization of the spiritual knowledge and the spiritual essence of wisdom. Fourth, recognition of the reality of the creation and her laws. Fifth, life according to the creational laws. Clarification of the spirit and the intellect. Recognition of the real task and power of the spirit. Total reduction of all belief assumptions. So the Plejaren thought that is Billy's stage, and that he's tending to the next one, which is deliberate and directed utilization of spiritual and consciousness-based powers. So they were completely wrong about that. Of course, Billy is much, much further, but they had to find out later on that is the case. And the seventh subdivision of, what was it, real life? Yeah, real life is procreation of first viable life forms. And the fifth main period is creational life. And that is also where the Plejaren are in. First is procreation and direction of life forms. Second, creation of machine apparatus-based viable life forms that are probably androids. I would have to check that with Billy, but I'm quite sure that are like programmed life forms, like these greys and stuff like that, or some of the greys. I wouldn't say all of them, but I think Billy writes that also in a contact report, that they're programmed life forms in general, the greys. But the Plejaren have nothing to do with them, Also, what's going on now with UFOs and so on, the Plejaren have nothing to do with them. That are different groups, and they don't want to have anything to do with them. So whatever paranoia is going on in the Pentagon, they don't have to pin it on the Plejaren, and also I'm sure that they are no threat. It's just great business, to create it as a threat, Third subdivision of creational life is development of spiritual and consciousness-based power for the control of material and organic life forms. The following are the present stages of the Plejaren races. The Plejaren and also the Sonars and the Timur and so on, which also belong to or have the same ancestors, kind of, as the Plejaren have. Willful control of the life and all its forms and species. Fifth stage of recollections of past lives. Now, sometimes Professor Ian Stevenson, he was a scholar who investigated like children who have recollections of past life or past lives, and usually that are spirit forms that, because of overpopulation, had to come back into a human body too quickly and weren't able to process all the experiences they made in their previous life, and basically still remember their past life because they haven't kind of fully processed it yet. And that is usually the case. However, it can also be that there's this very advanced spirit form in our creation energy form in their child, and so what sometimes is called an old soul, and really consciously remembers the past life in a sense because of its spiritual development or highly evolved state. But in most cases, it's that these children haven't processed their previous life properly, and that's why they remember their past life. The sixth subdivision of creational life is essence of wisdom kingship, Ishvish, the second to last highest might knowledge. Ta is an Ishvish, or he became a Shrut now, some time ago, or some years ago, which is the highest title you can have. And Swat was also an Ishvish, or a wisdom king, and Semjase was an Ishrish, that's the female form, so a wisdom queen, you could say. And she had an accident in the 70s, later on here in the center, and lost lots of her memory, but she will regain it, and I'm sure she will become an Ishrish again. And it's a title, it's nothing absolute, but if you want to have that title, then you have to do a test or tests, and it's not easy. And Quetzal is also on his way trying to achieve this title, and I wish him good luck. And yeah, it's maybe like what we would say professor so and so, but I mean professor is not comparable to that, because I mean we have lots of professors who are idiots, so that's more fact knowledge. An Ishvish or a wisdom king is a wise, must be a wise person, and must have demonstrated that person in action many years before you can have such a title, you know. And the seventh is recognition of the spiritual peace, the universal love, and the creational harmony. Now, spiritual peace doesn't mean you smoke a joint and you chill, you know. That is peace that is perpetual and cannot be disturbed. So that is it's experience based, and yeah, maybe one could describe it as samadhi. I would have to ask Billy about it, but something like that. and also to be able to keep this up, not just, it's, even if you ever have the experience of samadhi, it's very difficult to stay in it, So first it's difficult to achieve it, and then much more, more difficult, but also from then on, it's the practice is to stay into this inner peace, and to have a direct experience of universal love, and creational harmony, that you are in that state most of the time or all of the time. 6 main period is spiritual life. First, acknowledgement and realization of the spiritual peace, the universal love and the creational harmony. Life in purely spiritual forms is the second one. Third, spiritual creations. Fourth, disembodiment of the spirit from organic bodies. So at this point, the spirit form does not enter physical bodies anymore, and you exist in a subtle energy form only. You are still an entity, and I like to describe it like a hologram or so. But he said, yeah, you might be able to say it like that, and you're not physical anymore. Somebody could just grab through you, but you're still an entity. And I think that Billy is just 1 or 2 steps before that, so, in his spiritual development, since he's a Banshrut anyway, the only one in our creation, in all 7 dimensions. So, he must be kind of, anything else would make little sense, I think. So, and the Plejaran come to him too, and it's also in later contact reports where Ta thanks him for answering the questions they had, and so he's teaching them also, Most of the time we are not aware of it, even in the center, he just gives them whatever he wrote or so, and Then the 5th is the first spiritual existence, so literally non-physical, 6th subdivision is final spiritual existence. 7, transition into the creation. And the 7th and the last main period is creation life. So everything that follows now is pure spirit forms, And it's all kind of perception of we completely, There's no I or so. Creation life. First subdivision. Twilight sleep over 7 periods or eternities. Second, awakening and beginning of creation in the creation as creation during 7 periods, eternities. Third, creating of life forms. Fourth, creating of new spirit in the relative absolute fulfillment of the creation. That's you can think about that all your life and you still don't really know what that means, but we'll see, We all get there sooner or later. Fifth, creation of spiritual greatness in the creation. Sixth, relative absolute fulfillment of the creation in the creation. Seventh, last attaining of highest absolutely full development of the seventh period or eternity. And then Semjase further explains, the twilight sleep of the creation outlasts 7 periods or eternities or great times. Now, one great time is 311, well, in German it's billion. What's 1,000 times a billion? Trillion, right. 311 trillion 40 billion years amount to one period or eternity or great time. So I prefer to use the word great time. So the universe we live in, or the creation with its 7 dimensions, exists for 46 trillion years, much longer than what science is thinking now, but that's what the Plejadians say, and I'm sure they will find out later on, much later. Anyway, our universe as we know it exists already for 47 trillion years. And it will expand further and further, and at halftime it will stop expanding and then contracting again. And the full cycle is 311 trillion years. So, pretty long time. And the twilight sleep is 7 times that. So 7 times 311 trillion years. So extremely long time. And after that, a new creation will arise, but that will not have a physical area anymore. By the twilight sleep of the creation, all life and the entire universe cease to exist. Only after her newly awakening does she begin to create everything anew. During her twilight sleep, there is neither space nor time. There is only the nothing, since they lie asleep in the unending womb of the creation and the null time. If there is no creating thought, then there's also no power, no time, and no space. There's only duration in the nameless nothing, which Billy also calls nihilo. Billy, now I'm a lot smarter. Semjase, you will get over it and work it out, probably sooner than me. Billy, I hope I can do that, even though it will cause me some headaches, especially the nameless nothing, with which I have never made ends meet with until now. Semjase, laughing, well, you will probably keep your head. But concerning the nameless nothing, don't think too much about it, for it is also a mystery to us, which we cannot solve. But now it is again time for me, for I must go. What I really wanted to tell you, I now have to postpone until the next time, unless you consider something else as more important. So Billy also doesn't know. It's just nothing, the nihilo, and but how the creation energy can come out of nothing and also return into it, that's simply a mystery to the player and to us too, of course. It's not so important. We'll find out when we get there. But also she, again, how much respect she shows and says, if you have anything more important, then we can talk about that. And that's what I really enjoy reading in these contact reports, how much respect there is and appreciation, and that they communicate really differently than we do. And it's not only a nice talk, but there's a lot more going on in these conversations than you might be able to detect in the first reading. So, and I can just recommend that you read it online and think about it. It's not important to understand every detail, because, as she said, even they haven't figured it all out. But I found it extremely helpful, and I wish you good luck with thinking about it and figuring out whatever you do.